Competency 10. Feedback is the whole point of assessment. Here's the truth bomb. Giving a student a grade with no feedback is like handing someone a map but not telling them where they are. The student sees the grade, but they have no idea what they did wrong, why it was wrong, or how to fix it. Competency 10 is all about monitoring feedback and flexibility. And the exam loves to ask about this. Let me break it down in the simplest way possible. Key vocabulary. Here are the words you need to know. Monitoring, constantly checking how students are doing. Feedback, telling students what they did right, what they did wrong, and how to fix it. Timely feedback, giving feedback soon after the work, not weeks later. Constructive feedback, this is helpful criticism that shows how to improve. We all know formative assessments. These are checks during learning. For example, exit tickets, thumbs up and down. Summative assessment, final checks after learning. These are unit tests and final exams. Self-assessment, this is when students evaluate their own work. Flexibility, this is changing your teaching based on the student's needs. And rubric, it's a scoring guide that shows exactly what's expected. Key verbs. As you can see on the board, the three key verbs are monitors, provides, and response. You watch, you give feedback, and you change your teaching based on what you see. That's competency 10. And the ideal teacher, they don't just do these things sometimes. They do them every day for every student. The big problem, no feedback means no improvement. Listen to me. The exam says this is one of the most frustrating things a student or parent can experience. What is it? Lack of feedback. Teachers have the information. They graded the test. They know what students get wrong, but they don't always share that information with students and parents. The result? Students can't improve. They don't know what they did wrong. Without feedback, students' performance will not improve. A grade by itself is useless. Feedback is the whole point of assessment. Here's the simple truth. Giving a grade without feedback is like, again, handing someone a map without telling them where they are. Here's what the ideal teacher knows. That extra 10 minutes writing comments or feedback, that's the most important 10 minutes of your day. During and after. Let's clear this up right now. Two types of assessments. Formative is during learning. Why? Because this is the time you adjust your teaching. For example, exit tickets, thumbs up or down, and observation. Summative, this is after learning. Why? This is where you measure mastery. Examples, unit tests, final exams, state test. Formative is like checking the oven while cookies are baking. Are they done yet? Do I need more time? Summative is the final test. Test. Are the cookies good? Did you succeed? Both are important, but here's the secret. The ideal teacher uses formative assessment constantly. Not once a week, not once a day, always. Why? Because the ideal teacher doesn't wait until the test to find out students are lost. They check during the lesson and then they adjust. That's the difference between a good teacher and an ideal teacher. What makes good feedback? Not all feedback is created equal. Good feedback has 5 qualities. Number 1, timely. Give it soon, not 3 weeks later. 2, accurate. No errors, correct information. 3, constructive. Helpful, not just mean criticism. 4, substantive. That means it's meaningful, not just good job. Specific. Your topic sentence was strong because Get feedback like this, very specific. Don't just say, nice work. Good job is not good feedback. You have to be specific. Good job tells the student nothing. What was good? Why was it good? Specific feedback sounds like this. Your topic sentence clearly stated your main idea. That helped me follow your argument. That's feedback they can actually use. The ideal teacher says, your topic sentence clearly stated your main idea. That helped me follow your argument. Next time, add a transition word to connect to your second paragraph. Let me say this again. That's feedback they can actually use to get better. The three things every student needs to know. This is the most important part of the whole competency. Memorize this. Every single student needs these three things. One, what did I do wrong? Be specific. Like, for example, you added instead of subtracted. Two, why was it wrong? You got to explain the reason. Something like this. Because the problem said difference, which means subtract. Three, how do I fix it? You have to give steps like next time look for the word difference and then you subtract. Here's a warning sign. If you skip any of these, your feedback is incomplete. The student can't improve. The ideal teacher never skips any of these, ever. Even when they are tired, even when they have 150 papers to grade. Why? Because the ideal teacher is the Energizer Bunny. Timely feedback. Why speed matters. Why does timing matter? Because students forget. Let me repeat that. Because students forget. If you give a test back 3 weeks later, students don't remember what they wrote. They don't care anymore. They've moved on to other stuff. Same day or next day is really, really good. 3 weeks later, that's really, really bad. The ideal teacher, same day or next day. Students are still thinking about the content. They actually want to know how they did. Speed matters, and the ideal teacher makes speed a number one on her list, not an excuse. Self assessment. Students judge their own work. Here's something most teachers forget to teach: self assessment. That's when students evaluate their own work. They look at what they did, figure out what's good and what needs work, and make a plan to improve. Don't just give feedback, teach students how to use feedback. The ideal teacher doesn't just give feedback, they teach students again how to use feedback. When students take ownership of their own learning, they get better, faster, and the ideal teacher makes this happen. Let's talk about flexibility, the most important skill. Here's the truth: even the best lesson plan might not work, and that's okay because the ideal teacher is flexible. What you see students are not in, well, what you see, let me give you an example. What you see, if students are not engaged, what does the ideal teacher do? Stops immediately, changes the activity. Flexibility looks like this. A lesson is not working. What does the ideal teacher do? Adjust. Don't keep doing what isn't working. Here's another example. If you see students are confused, then the ideal teacher will reteach and then change his approach. Here's another one. If students are confused, what should the ideal teacher do? Adds depth. Depth doesn't just move on. Oh, wait. Lesson plans are guides, not prisons. The ideal teacher watches students. Let, let them guide the teaching. That's flexibility. And the exam loves this word. Let's talk about rubrics. No surprises. Want to make grading easier and fair? use a rubric. A rubric is just a scoring guide that shows exactly what's expected. Why rubrics are great? Students know what's expected before they start. Grading is consistent and fair, no surprises. The ideal teacher gives rubrics before the assignment, not after. The ideal teacher gives the rubric to students again, let me tell you, before they do the assignment. That's good teaching. That's fair teaching. That's ideal teaching. Real world applications in technology. The ideal teacher makes learning real. Let's talk about a traditional test. For example, multiple choice on budgeting. But the ideal teacher will create a monthly budget for a pretend salary. So we have a traditional text example, quiz on letter writing. What would the ideal teacher do? Write an actual letter to a community member to make it real world. The ideal teacher makes learning real. A traditional test would look like test on measurements, but the ideal teacher real world application looks like this. Measures the classroom and draw a floor plan. Why does this work? Because students see why they need to know this. It matters outside of school. In technology, you ask? The ideal teacher uses online quizzes with instant feedback, digital portfolios, video presentations. The ideal isn't afraid of tech, they embrace it. The two favorites for this competency. If you get stuck on the exam, remember these two favorites. Favorite number one knows the characteristics, uses, advantages, and limitations of various assessment methods, including technology and real world applications. Favorite number two know how to promote students' ability to use feedback and self assessment to guide their own learning. Teach students to use feedback, not just to read it, like the ideal teacher does. Remember, if you're stuck on a question, hear the little birds telling you ideal, ideal, ideal. So you have to pick the answer about knowing different assessments or promoting self assessment during the test. And always pick the most ideal version of that answer. Let's talk about the pretend game. Let me be real with you for a second. Maybe you're thinking, this ideal teacher is nice, but it's not realistic. It would never work in my school. I hear you. But here's what the test wants you to do: pretend. Just pretend that you actually believe you will become an ideal teacher. Pretend you will really impact your students, your district, your town, and your world. Feel how that would feel. Savor the good feeling as it seeps through you. Even if you don't believe it, the test developers do believe it. They write the test. So for the next few hours, pretend you believe too. And then work toward it forever. Warning. Here's the number one mistake test takers make. Question number one. A teacher wants to integrate a new curriculum for at-risk students. What should they do first? We have option one, research the practices for at-risk students. B, Thomas Jefferson was president of the United States. C, ask students about their interests. And D, review existing data on student performance. C, answer B. It's true. Thomas Jefferson was president. But does it answer this question? No. The ideal teacher underlines keywords, stays focused, doesn't get distracted by true but wrong answers. If an answer doesn't answer the question, it's wrong, even if it's true. Quick review. Again, quick review. If you see A question about formative assessment. Think during learning, adjust as you go. If on the test you see a question about summative assessment, think after learning, grades, mastery. If you see a question about timely feedback, think soon after the work. If you see a question about three things students need, your answer should be, what did I do wrong? Why was it wrong? And how to fix it. If you see a scenario about self-assessment, you got to look for the answer that says students judge their own work. If somewhere on the question it says flexibility, you automatically got to think change based on student needs. If you see a question about rubric, think clear expectations, no surprises. If you see a question talking about real world applications, your answer should be looks like real life. And remember, the ideal teacher never gives up, always does what's right, not what's easy. Remember the cycle for this competency. First, you teach, then, you assess, then, you give feedback, then, students improve, then, you assess again, and then, you repeat. This never ends. The ideal teacher is always in this loop. Final thing, the most important thing actually. Feedback is the whole point of assessment. Without it, students don't know what they did wrong. They don't know how to improve. Learning stops. With feedback, students improve. Learning continues. Assessment has purpose. Don't ever become a lifeless paper pusher. Most paper pushers aren't true visionaries or idealists. Idealists. Stay a student-centered teacher who always does what's right, not what's easy. So, simple rule to remember, don't be a boring employee just collecting a paycheck. Be the ideal teacher. On the test day, hear the birds. Think of that teacher you visualize. Forget reasonable. Forget practical. Think ideal. And then go change the world. You've got this. Go pass that exam.